Hi there. On our walk through the Word today, I thought we'd slow down for just a moment and let's talk about a real problem that we're having in our society today. The problem with pornography. It's a problem that infects us like a disease. You find it everywhere. Public library, schools, kids have it on their phones. It's on TV, it's everywhere in our society. It even finds its way into the church. So let's talk about something that is usually kept in the dark. Let's turn the light on as we talk about pornography. So I said to you earlier that one of the biggest problems we have is the secrecy that surrounds pornography. We find it everywhere in the church and the schools. But do you ever think what your personal use of pornography means? Every time you click on that website, every time you look through that book, I guess people really use books as much as they used to. But the movie industry, even the music, you're feeding the sex trafficking industry. Just like any other product, pornography is a business. And it takes two things to make any business work. It needs a customer and it needs a product. And in the world of pornography, well, the product is human flesh. And if you are that customer who, even in the privacy of your own home or on a cell phone, in a library such as this, when you engage in pornography, you're feeding that industry. Now granted, you yourself may not be the one who's going out and recruiting these young girls, these young boys, but when you buy into that industry, you're telling the producers what the demand is. And so every time we click in, every time we buy in, every time we log on, we're telling somebody who has power over some other person's life what we want done. And for the power of that dollar, lives are being destroyed. Children, up to 100,000 kids a day, just here in America, are trafficked for sex. Can you let your mind wrap around that? And the time it took you to brush your teeth this morning, how many children were sold for sex? Then we have the adult sex industry, also the product of pornography. Drive up and down any street in America, popular street, and you're going to find that one neighborhood where sex is sold. So pornography is a problem. My use, your use, anybody using pornography, you're feeding the problem, you're feeding the beast. It drives the industry, and that drives sex trafficking. So that's one reason, one of three, that you need to break the pornography habit. Because if you're feeding the beast, you're part of the problem. Now that I got a cup of coffee, we can finish our talk. I told you earlier that if you supported pornography, you're supporting the sex industry. But have you ever thought about how watching pornography affects you? There's many different ways that this is manifested. One is in the physiological effects it has on your body. When you're watching pornography, it creates that dopamine drip in your mind, in your brain, which is what leads to addiction. And we do know that a person can get addicted to pornography the same way someone else might get addicted to a narcotic or alcohol. It creates this sensation in your brain where it develops a certain level of dependency on the dopamine level, that pleasure drive. And the thing about dopamine is that it also gives us the drive to accomplish the thing that we want. So a person who gets addicted to pornography, not only are they stimulating the pleasure drive, it creates such a high drive, and then it pushes you into action. Now that's manifested in two different ways, of course. It has different effects on guys, it does on girls. But here's a story from my own experience as a pastor and counseling. I'm doing marriage counseling once. I had this couple come to me. Husband and wife, been married, 2 kids if I remember correctly. And they bought the lie that if they use pornography, it could help their sex life. Well, after a while, this is kind of uncommon the way it worked out, but it does happen this way. The husband got bored and thought to himself that the pornography is not really good for us, so let's just stop. Outwardly, the wife agreed, but by this time she had gotten addicted. And she continued to use pornography. And as it does with the female psyche, it pushed her to act out because it creates the drive for sexual desire, both in the male and the female. The differences in the male is that after a while, it stops your ability to actually have sex in the real world. Because what happens is your dopamine level gets so high that the level of stimulation is far above what's normal. And so the real world doesn't do it. You need more and more of the drug, and in this case, that drug being pornography. But for the female, the drive is there. And now her acting out means that she typically will have more sexual partners. Well, in this case, this wife kiss her husband goodbye, send the kids off to school, and she started watching porn. Eventually, that led her to acting out. She started having indiscriminate sexual rendezvous, led to the destruction of her marriage. Another time, I was creating a presentation on anti-porn, and I just finished the production, just got my script written, had my visual cues all set up, and I began to second guess myself. I thought, is this really necessary? Should I really do this? Sitting in my office, I hear a knock on the door. I open the door, and in walks a young lady that worked at the same facility I did. Have you ever seen one of those children who hurt themselves, but they're looking for their mom before they start to cry? This is the kind of look she had on her face. She was looking there. I got her inside my office, and I closed the door. And as soon as the door was closed, she broke like a thundercloud, tears streaming down her face, just shy of the point where her body was quaking. I'm asking her now, what's wrong? What's the problem? What's going on? And she says, it's my friend. I'm thinking, oh, did somebody hurt your friend or domestic violence? I mean, what's happening? And she says no, in between her sobs, that her friend's husband had gotten addicted to pornography. And she had discovered this morning that they were losing their home. Because instead of paying the mortgage, taking care of the bills, her husband was spending his money on pornography and acting out sexually. She lost her house. She lost her home. She lost her marriage, all because of pornography. In my years in counseling, I've seen this story replay itself many times. People get involved in pornography for many different reasons, never stopping to think of the physiological, the psychological, the spiritual impact it has on them. Wives are often put in places of pressure because of husband's sexual addiction. Children are often forgotten and then exposed. And it all goes back to the very selfish act of pornography. Tying that together with our first point, that when you're using pornography, there are victims being created. There's the female who's being used to make the images. There are the guys who are involved. And then there's the innocent victims that get victimized because someone else's passions are stirred because of watching pornography. And then they act out on them. And we haven't even talked about the spiritual implications of lust and the destruction that has spiritually on us. But just those 2 legs, those first 2 points, don't you think that's enough? The sexual industry, sex trafficking, children and young women being forced into sex trade. Couple that with the second one, with the negative effects it has on you, the inability to actually perform sexually, to have a fulfilling sex life. That's what pornography does. It turns you into the product that the industry demands. You become part of the problem, and the cycle just begins all over again. So you think about it. It feels like a victimless crime, doesn't it? Just me in the privacy of my own room, enjoying, watching, doing. But on the other end of that line, there are victims. Children, marriages, careers, all being lost because of an addiction to pornography. You know, a lot of people don't tie this together, so let's see if we can wrap it up, put it in a shell. Jesus said in the Gospels, and if you were to look upon a woman to lust after her, you've already committed adultery in your heart. He said in that same passage, well, earlier on, when asked about the commandments, he said, the whole of the law and the prophets are summarized in these two things. One, to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And if I'm loving God, I'm not going to be abusing you through the use of pornography. If I'm loving my neighbor as I love myself, I'm not going to be taking advantage of some child or some woman or man that's being exploited through the sex industry, perhaps because of drug addiction, perhaps because of sexual abuse, and they're just hurting and can't get past it. Or maybe they've just been flat out trafficked, been forced into it through fear and the fear of repercussions or damage or harm to their families. But the big picture is this: God sees your habits. He knows what you're doing. He knows where you're coming from. And when you give in to sexual addiction, when you give in to pornography, you're breaking the heart of God. You're destroying, in the image of God, that which God has created. So we come back to this. Do we want to please God, or do we want to please ourselves? Are we willing to injure others so that we can have that sense of feel good? My grandmother used to say all the time, you don't get away with anything, son. See, there's a God in heaven who sits on high and looks down low, and he judges in the affairs of men, and he sees everything you're doing. So whereas you may think you're secret, you may think you're hiding in the darkness, you may be in the privacy of your own bedroom, but God sees and God knows. And it's not even about him punishing you. It's about you missing out on the blessing of his presence. It's about you destroying the fullness of joy in your life and in the life of that other person who's being victimized. Does it feel good? Yeah. There's pleasure in sin for a season. But as Romans 6:24 says, for the wages of sin is death. Eventually you got to pay the price. And God is saying to you, come out, be free. There's a way for you to be free from the addiction of porn. Think about what it does to others. Think about what it's doing to you. Think about what it does to the heart of God. If you need prayer to break the stronghold of porn in your life, let me know. Me and my team will be glad to pray with you and pray for you. And I know God hears my prayers. I know that he answers, and I know that he'll deliver you. So, until next time, walk with me in the Word, and let's find freedom from the addiction to pornography. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you back here again next week. Until then, God bless you.